The story begins with an introverted and quiet woman who struggles to express her feelings. Her name is Yam Maon. Today, after work, she ate with her office friends. While everyone was busy chatting, Mon remained silent. Noticing this, one of her friends asked why she hadn't joined an office club, as it was mandatory for all employees. Mayon explained that her house was very far from the office, so she had to go home early every day. After dinner, they decided to go bowling. Even amidst the excitement of the game, Mayon still felt lonely. She found it difficult to socialize and build friendships. Feeling out of place, Mayon excused herself early, using her long commute as an excuse. Later, she went to a restaurant to meet her older sister, Yan, so they could go home together. Yan was the complete opposite of Maon, extroverted, expressive, and wild. While her older sister was busy chatting with friends, Maon quietly listened to their conversation. One of Yan's friends, Ji Jong, complained about being stressed because she was getting older and still unmarried. She said she had yet to find the right girlfriend. Yan then shared that she had recently dated a widower with one child. According to her, dating a widower was uncomfortable because a widower would always prioritize their child. Upon hearing this, her friends quickly tried to stop her from saying more. At that moment, a man sitting next to them turned out to be a widower with his daughter. Realizing that the atmosphere had become awkward, the women quickly decided to leave. It was then that Maon recognized the widower. He was her office manager. As they left, Maon bowed politely to him, silently apologizing for her sister's insensitive words. Meanwhile, in another scene, a man had a big fight with his girlfriend. She broke up with him, leaving him heartbroken. It turned out that the woman was having an affair with someone she believed to be richer. The devastated man was Chang, Maon's older brother. Afterward, the three siblings, Maon, Yan, and Chang, took a taxi home to their faraway village. While in the taxi, the three siblings sat in silence, lost in their thoughts as they gazed at the city streets passing by. The next day, they helped their parents work in the fields. Their parents were farmers who owned a large piece of land in the village. Among the workers was a man named Mr. Gu, whom their father had hired. Mr. Gu's background was a mystery. He never spoke about his past or where he came from. One day he had suddenly arrived in the village and asked Mayon's father for a job as a farmer. Since their father needed an extra hand, he eventually hired Mr. Gu. After working for hours in the garden, they took a break and enjoyed lunch together. During the meal, Chang-hee began complaining to his parents about not having a car. He believed that his girlfriend had cheated on him because he looked poor. Frustrated, Chang-hee asked his father for permission to buy a car, but Mr. Yam refused. Previously, Chang-hee had tried to buy a car on an installment plan but couldn't afford the payments. Angry and bitter, Chang-hee vented his frustration, saying, "The reason the three of us are still single is because we don't have a car. Everyone looks down on us because we seem poor." That night, Chang-hee met up with his village friend, Du Wan. As they talked, the conversation turned to their love lives. Chang-hee shared how his girlfriend had cheated on him. Du Wan, however, said that his situation was even worse. He admitted that he had never had a long-term relationship because every woman he pursued avoided him. To make matters worse, his business had just gone bankrupt. Du-won sighed and added that many girls rejected him because they didn't find him attractive. One woman even cruelly told him, "You look like an abandoned dog." After pouring out their frustrations, the two friends felt a little better and laughed at their struggles. Then they wondered, would our lives have been different if we had been born in a big city like Seoul instead of a remote village? Without hesitation, Chung-hee answered confidently, "We would definitely be better off than we are today." The next morning, Mayon went to the office as usual. On the way, she ran into Mr. Gu, but the man simply walked past her without saying a word. This made Mayon think that he might be just like her, introverted and struggling to communicate with others. At the office, Mayon was suddenly called in by her boss, along with two other male employees. Their boss explained that the three of them had something in common. They had all refused to join any of the office clubs, even though it was a mandatory rule to encourage friendships among employees. To Mayon's surprise, she recognized one of the men. It was the widower with the child she had seen at the restaurant the other day. Their boss asked why they had chosen not to participate in any of the clubs. Mayon explained that her house was too far from the office, so she had to head straight home after work. The widower then explained that he couldn't join because he had to take care of his daughter after work. The third man said that he was an introvert and simply wasn't comfortable joining social activities. Hearing their reasons, the boss remained firm, stating that it was company policy, so they would eventually have to choose a club in the future. After the meeting, Maon returned to her desk to continue working. However, she suddenly noticed that her other boss was scribbling on her report. He looked at her and said, "Your work needs improvement. You have to step up your performance." The criticism stung, and after work, Maon decided to stop by a cafe to fix her report. Sitting alone, she felt overwhelmed and deeply sad. She had just been scolded, but she had no one to talk to about how she felt. Being introverted and lacking close friends, all Maon could do was silently cry by herself. The next day at the office, she overheard some of her coworkers gossiping about her. One of them asked a male employee who was still single why he had never tried to date Maon. The man casually replied, "Maon is beautiful, but her personality is dull and boring. That makes her completely unattractive." Hearing those words, Maon felt a deep pang of hurt. Mayon couldn't stop thinking about what the man had said. The question kept lingering in her mind. Why was she seen as dull and uninteresting? Why was she so quiet and unable to express herself the way others did? She wondered if things would have been different if she had been born in the capital instead of the countryside. Maybe she wouldn't be so reserved. Maybe she wouldn't struggle so much to connect with others. She wanted to speak up, to reach out and make friends, but she didn't know how. The next morning, Mom received a message from a bank employee. The message was direct. Her credit debt was due, and she needed to make the payment immediately. If she failed to pay, the bank would send a letter to her home. At this moment, the truth behind her debt was revealed. Mayon hadn't borrowed money for herself. She had once been close to a man, someone she trusted. That man had persuaded her to take out a loan in her name, promising that he would handle the repayments. But he had deceived her. Now that he had vanished, leaving the debt unpaid, she was the one who had to bear the burden alone. That night, Mayon tried calling him, but he never answered. Meanwhile, her siblings and friends were having a small party in the village. Once again, they gathered, talking about their struggles in life. Maon still had her own problems to deal with, but being the introverted person she was, she simply sat there listening to them talk while secretly worrying about her debt. The next day, Maon made a decision. She went to Mr. Gu's house. Mr. Gu was clearly surprised to see her at his doorstep. "Why are you here?" he asked. Maon hesitated before finally answering. She asked for his help. She wanted the bank's debt letter to be redirected to his house instead of hers. She begged him to keep it a secret because she didn't want her family to find out that she had such a large debt. Without asking any further questions, Mr. Gu, an introvert himself, simply nodded and agreed to help her. The next day, after work, Mr. Gu handed the bill to Maon. That night, Mrs. Yum asked Maon to deliver food to Miss Brow's house. On the way, Maon felt guilty about troubling Mr. Gu and decided it was best to explain why she had asked for his help with the debt bill. Even though Maon carefully explained everything, Mr. Gu remained silent. Yet rather than feeling uncomfortable, Maon found a strange sense of calm in his presence. She felt that they were alike, two introverts in a chaotic world. The next day, the office organized a group meal. Everyone was assigned a table, and Maon found herself seated with Ta-hoon and Cheng-man, the two co-workers who, like her, had refused to join any office clubs. After the meal, Maon and Ta-hoon happened to share an elevator ride. Feeling uneasy, Maon took the opportunity to apologize for what her older sister had said before. She worried that it might have offended Ta-hoon. However, Ta-hoon simply shook his head and reassured her that it wasn't a problem. That night, Maon gathered with her siblings and village friends. They had all decided to go into town. It was there that Maon saw a woman she deeply admired, Yuna. Yuna was the complete opposite of her. She was outgoing, confident, and expressive. Yuna could easily make friends and freely say whatever was on her mind without worrying about what others thought. Unlike Maon, Yuna wasn't burdened by fear or hesitation. Watching her, Maon couldn't help but wish she could be like her. She often dreamed of being independent, just like Yuna. At that moment, she thought to herself, if I could be reborn, I would want to be like Yuna. Because the way she was now, she was constantly afraid of what people thought of her. She struggled to express her desires, and because of that, she felt trapped. Life felt complicated. She often felt lonely because she always suppressed what she truly wanted to say. Meanwhile, Cheng He was at work, supervising the shops in his branch. That day, the store was unexpectedly busy, and the cashier was overwhelmed. To help, Cheng He stepped in as a temporary cashier. While he was working, his ex-girlfriend suddenly appeared. She was there with her new boyfriend. Cheng Hei was completely caught off guard. What shocked him even more was that her new boyfriend was taller, more handsome, and clearly wealthier than him. A painful feeling settled in his chest. Instead of acknowledging her, Cheng Hei pretended not to recognize her. He still felt hurt, but more than that, he felt humiliated. In that moment, he convinced himself that ignoring her was the best thing he could do. So, without a word, he acted as if she were a complete stranger. As Chang Hei stood there, he could only watch in silence as his ex-girlfriend got into her new lover's car and drove away. A bitter feeling settled in his chest. At that moment, he reassured himself that leaving her had been the right decision. She looked happy with someone richer, someone who had a car. Unlike him, Chang Hei had nothing, and maybe, deep down, that was why she had moved on so easily. Meanwhile, Maon decided to contact one of the friends of the man who had taken out a loan in her name. The woman hesitated, but eventually revealed the truth. The man had run away to Thailand and was trying to reconcile with his ex-girlfriend. Hearing this, Maon felt a sharp pain in her chest. Not only did she have to pay off his debt, but he had also abandoned her, all to chase after another woman. It was almost too much to bear. That evening, after work, Maon was walking home when she suddenly saw her parents rushing toward Mr. Gu's house. A sense of dread filled her, and she quickly followed them. When she arrived, she found Mr. Gu standing there, his nose bleeding. Without hesitation, Maon helped him and rushed him to the hospital. Later that night, her family gathered to discuss what had happened. Her mother, Mrs. Yum, sighed heavily and said, "It must be because of his drinking habits. Maybe he fell while he was drunk." Then her mother began telling them the story of how Mr. Gu first arrived in the village. No one knew who he was or where he came from. Even Mr. Gu wasn't his real name. One day he had simply appeared in the village looking for work. At first, people were suspicious, but Mon's father, Mr. Yim, saw that Mr. Gu was hardworking and diligent. So, despite the uncertainty surrounding him, Mr. Yim decided to hire him. Suddenly, Kang spoke up. "Maybe he never talks about his past because he's hiding from something. Maybe he has a case against him and that's why he ran to this village." Mrs. Yum shook her head. "I don't believe that," she said firmly. "Mr. Gu may be secretive, but I've watched him for years. His behavior, his work ethic, he's not a bad person." In the middle of their conversation, Chang Hei happened to glance out the window. His eyes widened in shock. "Wait, Mr. Gu is already back?" They all turned toward the window. Sure enough, Mr. Gu was standing outside, drunk as usual. It was a strange sight. Just that afternoon, he had looked like someone who had been beaten. Yet now, he was drinking again, drowning himself in alcohol. Maon lowered her gaze. She had seen this routine too many times. No matter what happened to him, injury, pain, or suffering, Mr. Gu never stopped drinking. It was as if he was trying to forget something so painful that he needed to drown it out every single night. The next day at the office, Maon noticed that her boss seemed deeply disappointed with her work. Her chest tightened. She had tried so hard, yet it wasn't enough. As if that weren't bad enough, the other managers kept pressuring her to join a company club. That same day, her boss called her in and said, "Maon, I found a club that suits you, since you like being alone." Hearing this, Maon couldn't hold back her tears. Her boss had let her down. But more than that, she was sad, because being alone was never her choice. She wanted to have friends. She wanted to express her thoughts. She wanted to share her worries with someone. But no matter how hard she tried, she always ended up trapped in isolation. She hated it. No matter what she did, she remained the same introverted, socially awkward person who couldn't connect with others. After work, Maon sat alone, feeling weary of life. No matter how much she tried to change, it felt like no one liked her. No one understood her. When she arrived in the village, her emotions were boiling over. She wanted to scream. She wanted to tell someone exactly how she felt. At that moment, she saw Mr. Gu, drunk as usual. Impulsively, she walked up to him. "Instead of wasting your life drinking like this every day," she blurted out, "why don't you say something nice to me?" Mr. Gu frowned. "What?" Maon's voice trembled. "I'm tired. Tired of everything. My heart feels empty. I just want someone to say something kind to me. Just once. Every man I've met has been awful. Is it so much to ask?" For a moment, Mr. Gu was silent. Then he let out a bitter laugh. "I can't grant your request," he said. "You don't even know my real name, let alone my past. I'm no better than the men you despise." His tone was flat, but there was something heavy in his words. "Go home, Maon," he muttered. That night, Mr. Gu couldn't stop thinking about her words. How do you compliment someone? Did he even know how? Curious, he searched online for ways to give a sincere compliment. But the more he read, the more lost he felt. The next evening, Maon stayed out late with her office friends. One of them noticed and asked, "Maon, why are you still here? You always insist on going home early." She forced a smile. "I just don't feel like going home yet." But deep down, she knew the truth. She was avoiding Mr. Gu. After pouring her heart out to him the night before, she felt too embarrassed to face him again. The next day at the office, Maon finally worked up the courage to contact a friend of the man who had taken a loan in her name. She was determined to collect the debt. Finally, a reply came, but instead of an apology or explanation, the person insulted her. Frustrated, Maon accidentally muttered a harsh curse under her breath. Unfortunately, her boss happened to be nearby. He thought the words were directed at him. His face darkened, and once again Mayan found herself facing his anger. That night, Gan was on his way home from work, unexpectedly ran into ex-girlfriend on the train. They talked briefly, and during their conversation, Gan learned something surprising. Maon had never left Changi. All this time, Gan had told himself and others that she had left him. But the truth, he was the one who had walked away. Later that night, Gan sat down with Chang Hei and asked, "Why do you keep twisting the facts? Why do you always look so sad about being abandoned when you were the one who left?" For so long, Chang Hei had insisted that his ex had left him, but in reality, she had tried to reach out countless times, begging for another chance. Now, backed into a corner, Chang Hei could no longer hide behind his lies. He finally admitted the truth. He had been looking for a reason to leave her, because deep down he felt insecure. He believed he didn't deserve her, that she would be better off with a more successful, wealthier man. He thought he could never make her happy, especially now that he had nothing to offer. The next day at the office, during lunchtime, Mon was called in by her boss yet again to discuss which club she should join. While waiting, she met two colleagues who also had no club. The three of them quickly realized they needed a way to avoid being forced into clubs they didn't want to join. Then, Maon had an idea. "What if we start our own club?" "A liberation club," she said with a playful grin. "A club with only 3 members, where they wouldn't be pressured to join anything else." Her two friends laughed at the name, but after thinking about it for a moment, they both agreed. And just like that, the Liberation Club was born. The next day, Maon was heading to the office when she unexpectedly ran into Mr. Gu. Since the night she had blurted out that she wanted him to compliment her, they hadn't spoken at all. Not even a simple greeting. They were both avoiding each other, too embarrassed by that awkward moment. But this time, Maon took a deep breath and turned toward him. "From now on, let's at least greet each other," she said. That weekend, while farming in the rice fields, Maon looked at Mr. Gu and spoke honestly. "I can see it," she murmured. "Your heart is empty." Mr. Gu turned to her, frowning. "And?" Maon's voice softened. "I want to know, do you want to be worshipped? Because if you do, I'm willing to do it." For a moment, Mr. Gu was speechless. Her words made him think, really think. Later that night, Mr. Gu was invited to Maon's house for dinner. During the meal, Mrs. Yam, Maon's mother, mentioned something interesting. "You know, Maon's father always spoke highly of you." Mr. Gu raised an eyebrow. "Really?" "Yes," Mrs. Yam said. "He rarely praises anyone, but he always said you were impressive." That caught Mr. Gu off guard. Maon's father was a man who never gave out compliments. The only person he ever praised was Maon, for being an obedient child. For the first time, Mr. Gu felt honored. Suddenly, the door burst open. Kang and Chang Hei stumbled in, arguing loudly. They grabbed slippers and threw them at Changi, but accidentally hit Maon instead. For a moment, she sat there in stunned silence. Then, without a word, she picked up the slippers and threw them out of the house. The entire room fell quiet. Maon, who had always stayed silent, had just stood up for herself. Her two siblings exchanged nervous glances. It was clear, Maon was changing. She was finally learning to express her emotions. That night, Chang Hei visited Mr. Gu at his house. As they sat in the dimly lit room, Chang Hei spoke. "You know, Maon rarely gets angry. She struggles to express herself. But when she does," Chang Hei let out a dry laugh. "It's terrifying. Be careful around her, Mr. Gu." The next morning, one of Maon's colleagues called all the office workers together. She excitedly pointed at the bulletin board. There, in bold letters, was a new club announcement, the Liberation Club. Everyone laughed at the unusual name. Curious, they turned to Maon. "Hey, you joined this club, right?" one of them asked. "What exactly is this club about?" Maon hesitated. Then, with a small smile, she answered, "I'm not sure yet, but I created it to escape the invisible cage in my life. Anyone who joins will be on their way to freedom." That afternoon, Maon's father was making a cupboard to deliver to a customer. However, when he arrived, the customer refused to accept it, despite having ordered it beforehand. The customer complained that the price set by Mrs. Yam was too expensive. Mr. Yam, having no choice, accepted the rejection and returned home with Mr. Gu. Later that day, Mr. Gu went back to the customer's house. He firmly insisted that the customer pay, as they had already placed an order. The scene does not show how Mr. Gu persuaded the customer, but in the end, the person accepted the cupboard and paid the full amount. Mr. Gu then returned and handed the money to Mrs. Yam. During dinner, Mrs. Yam was curious about how Mr. Gu had managed to collect the payment, but her husband remained silent, simply listening. He too had no idea what Mr. Gu had done. The next day, the weather turned terrible. Heavy rain poured down, accompanied by lightning, making the office employees uneasy. However, Maon, Tahun, and Chainman remained calm, and then acting as if nothing unusual was happening. Strangely enough, Maon even found the storm comforting. After work, they went to a cafe for their first Liberation Club meeting. Unlike regular gatherings where people would sit in a circle and chat, the three of them sat side by side without facing each other. They felt this setup was more comfortable for them. As they talked, they discussed various topics, particularly the meaning of freedom and how each person perceives it differently. That evening, Maon continued to enjoy the beauty of the rain. As she stood watching, a sudden lightning strike caused a blackout in their house. Worried about Mr. Gu, Maon immediately ran to him, urging him to come inside as it was dangerous to stay outside. However, Mr. Gu remained silent and ignored her words. Frustrated, Maon grabbed his hand and pulled him into the house. The next day was the weekend, and as usual, they worked on the farm. While taking a break, a strong gust of wind blew Maon's hat away, sending it flying across a deep ditch. Seeing this, Chang Hee told her to fetch it herself. Unexpectedly, before she could act, Mr. Gu stood up and volunteered to get the hat. To everyone's amazement, Mr. Gu sprinted forward and leaped across the wide ditch effortlessly. The sight left everyone stunned. Such a jump seemed impossible for an ordinary person. This led Chang Hei to wonder if Mr. Gu had been a national athlete in the past. After retrieving the hat, Mr. Gu jumped back across the ditch and handed it to Chang Hei, who then gave it to Maon. This simple act made it clear that Mr. Gu was beginning to open his heart to Maon. Chang Hei was so impressed by what Mr. Gu had done that he became curious about his identity. From that moment, he started following Mr. Gu around, bombarding him with questions. He speculated that Mr. Gu might be a former national athlete, since there were athletes with a similar name. However, no matter how much Chang Hee pressed, Mr. Gu refused to reveal anything about his past. Even after finishing their meal, Chang Hee continued to pester Mr. Gu, trying to get him to talk. Eventually, Mr. Gu became annoyed and firmly told Chang Hee to stop. That night, Maon's father mentioned that they had run out of mosquito coils. As an obedient daughter, Maon wanted to go buy some, but her father told her it could wait until tomorrow since it was already late. However, Maon insisted and left for the supermarket. On her way, she kept thinking about Mr. Gu's attitude toward her. He was usually kind, but sometimes he acted distant and cold, leaving her confused. At the supermarket, she decided to buy alcohol for Mr. Gu, knowing that he often came there at night to buy drinks. Sure enough, on her way back home, she ran into Mr. Gu, who was on his way to buy alcohol. She handed him the bottle she had bought and took the opportunity to explain something she had said earlier, that by spring, they would become different people, not empty but complete. Curious, Mr. Gu asked what she meant by that. Mon explained that if they both adored each other, their feelings would feel fuller and more meaningful rather than empty like they were now. Based on her experience, she believed that people change when they do things they have never done before. Hearing her explanation, Mr. Gu fell silent. After a moment, he admitted that he had started trying to care about Mayun, just like he had that afternoon. After that, Mayon left, thinking that she and Mr. Gu could become closer. The next day, after buying drinks, Mr. Gu accidentally ran into Mayon, who had just exited the station. Mayon tried to approach him, but Mr. Gu looked confused and moved away, deliberately avoiding her. Mayon had hoped to start a conversation with him, wanting to get closer, but in the end, she swallowed her disappointment as he passed her by. Mr. Gu avoided Mayon because he was unsure about how to deal with her. On top of that, he had to face her family every day. That night, he lay awake, troubled by the consequences of rejecting Maon's invitation to eat together. Deep down, he wanted to know her better, but he felt uncomfortable because her family was his employer. The next day, Mr. Gu received his salary from Mayon's father. Summoning his courage, he asked for Mayon's phone number, feeling it was the right thing to do. That evening, on her way home from work, Mayon suddenly stopped walking when she received an unexpected message. It was from Mr. Gu. He had just gotten paid and asked if she wanted to have dinner with him. Seeing the message, Mayon felt happy. They finally ate together. When she got home, Miso asked why Mayon hadn't found someone who made her heart feel full, even though she had a happy and complete family. Mayon replied that she still didn't fully understand some sides of her parents and siblings. While they were talking, Gong suddenly got off the bus and spotted Maon alone with Mr. Gu. This made her curious about their relationship as they seemed much closer than before. Meanwhile, Chang He went to Mr. Gu's house after work, bringing alcoholic drinks from Mr. Hu. However, when he arrived, he found the house empty. Since the door was unlocked, he decided to enter. Inside, he was shocked to see a large number of empty alcohol bottles. That night, while drunk, Chang He was unexpectedly approached by Mian. The two ended up chatting for a long time. Unlike usual, Mian seemed more relaxed and spoke freely. Mr. Gu then remembered that he had once bought ice cream for Maon but hadn't dared to give it to her. Instead, he had stored it in the refrigerator. That night, he finally took it out and gave it to her. The next day, Mr. Gu was seen cleaning his house. Since Maon had visited, he felt that it should be tidied up. After finishing, he took a photo of the now clean house and sent it to Maon, making her happy. That day, Maon also seemed different, more confident in expressing her feelings at work. Her colleagues noticed and wondered why her personality had changed. That night, Maon visited Mr. Gu's house again. He admitted that cleaning the house had been difficult, especially getting rid of all the empty alcohol bottles. However, after deciding to pursue Maon and get closer to her, he had felt more motivated. Meanwhile, Changhe was still curious about Mr. Gu's extraordinary jumping ability. That day, he finally gathered the courage to try it himself. Mr. Gu had his doubts, and sure enough, when Chang He attempted the jump, he failed and fell into a ditch. At the same time, Mr. Gu's phone kept ringing. Many messages were coming in from people searching for him. It turned out that Gong's suspicions were correct. Mr. Gu had been avoiding the village to hide from those looking for him. From his phone, it was revealed that his real name was Gu Zhong. The next day, Maon's entire family was out farming. Maon and Mr. Gu seemed to be growing closer. Meanwhile, Gon was resting under an umbrella. Their mother immediately scolded her, thinking she was lazing around. However, V protested that it wasn't her but her younger sister, Maon, who wasn't working. She was too busy dating Mr. Gu. The following day, Maon sent a message to Mr. Gu, letting him know that she would be home late due to a club gathering at the office. She also shared details about the club, which had only 3 members, all with the same goal: to experience true freedom. The scene shifts to the cafe where Maon gathers with her club friends. Each of them shares their thoughts on what they hope to gain from freedom. The discussion begins with Changmen reading from his notebook, expressing his feelings. Suddenly, Wai Jiang contacts Maon, informing her that she is waiting outside the cafe to go home together. Without realizing it, Tahun approaches her. Since they know each other, Tahun invites Gang to join their group. As the event continues, Tahun takes his turn to share his story. The room falls silent as everyone listens. Tun reveals that when he was a child, his father passed away, and soon after, his mother also died. Losing both parents in such a short time devastated him. Because of that painful experience, he vows never to leave his daughter, even though he is now divorced. He knows firsthand how painful it is for a child to lose both parents at a young age. Tun strives to be the best father he can be, which is why he wrote in his notebook that he wants to be free from the emotional weight of his past. On the way home, Gang is deeply moved by Tun's story. She asks Maon for Tun's phone number. Once she gets it, she immediately contacts him. During their conversation, Gang directly asks about Tun's past relationships. However, Tun reassures her that all his past issues have been resolved and that she doesn't need to worry. Meanwhile, Maon repeatedly tries to contact the man who took out a loan under her name. Instead of paying the debt, the man scolds her. Feeling helpless, Maon breaks down in tears, realizing that she had been deceived. At home, Gang grows curious about her younger sister's relationship with Mr. Gu. She asks who made the first move. Maon replies that she was the one who initiated things first, though they are not officially dating yet. Instead, they have started openly praising and appreciating each other. Elsewhere, Mr. V hesitantly answers a phone call that has been ringing persistently. On the other end, someone urgently informs him that Mr. Gu has been confronted. It is then revealed that Mr. Gu used to be a gangster who managed a bar. The caller is an old colleague discussing Mr. Gu's past business dealings. However, Mr. Gu has since chosen to leave that world behind, disappearing into the village and pretending to be a poor man. That day, Maon decides to pay off her friend's debt using the money she had originally set aside as a deposit for a house. She deliberately sacrifices her savings because she doesn't want her family to find out about the situation. After leaving the bank, Maon runs into Mr. Gu. She informs him that she has settled the debt. Mr. Gu immediately asks if the man who owed her money had actually paid her back, but Maon admits that he hasn't, only that he promised to do so. Frustrated, Mr. Gu demands the man's name and phone number, intending to handle the situation himself. However, Maon refuses, insisting that she can still resolve the problem without his help. Later, at Mr. Gu's house, Maon finally gathers the courage to express her frustration. She tells him that all her life, people have looked down on her, assuming she is incapable of handling her own problems. Because of this, she is determined to keep the debt issue a secret from her family. She doesn't want them to see her as foolish or weak. She also firmly refuses Mr. Gu's help, insisting that she can still handle it on her own. Unlike usual, Mr. Gu remains quiet, simply listening. Then, to reassure her, he confesses something unexpected. He tells Maon that in the past, he was never afraid of anything, but now when he stands before her, all his courage vanishes. He admits that she is both the person he fears the most and the one he wants to see the most. Hearing his words, Maon finally starts to feel at ease. That night, when Mr. Gu had dinner with Maon's family, Kang, as the older sister, asked about the nature of his relationship with Maon. Mr. Gu replied that they were simply appreciating and praising each other. However, Gam felt annoyed, as she didn't understand Mr. Gu's vague response. Changi then stepped in and explained that their relationship was more than just friendship. Later, while Mr. Gu was out making a delivery, one of his old acquaintances, Sam Zik, spotted him driving a truck. Sam Zik immediately reported this to his boss, but the man dismissed it, saying that a wealthy man like Mr. Gu would never be caught driving an old, run-down truck. He was convinced that Sam Zik had mistaken someone else for Mr. Gu. Elsewhere, Majin submitted her latest work to her boss, but once again he criticized her efforts, finding them disappointing. However, when the executives reviewed her work, they were pleased with what she had done. While at work, Mr. Gu received a message from his friend Samik. He immediately called Samik back, only to hear that Samik had seen him at a gas station, refueling the truck. Samik also brought up Mr. Gu's past involvement in illegal dealings. At that moment, Samik warned him that he needed to return immediately and take care of unfinished business, specifically dealing with Director Beck. If Mr. Gu didn't act soon, he would be the one in danger. Mr. Gu could only respond that he wasn't ready to return just yet, but he promised that he would soon come back and settle everything from the past. As usual, later that night, Mr. Gu picked up Maon after she finished work and they walked home together. Even though it was just a simple walk, it made both of them happy. Maon, who usually kept her thoughts to herself unless asked, unexpectedly opened up to Mr. Gu that night. It was clear that she felt very comfortable around him. The next day, Maon was called in to meet with her superior. However, unlike before, this time, she finally expressed everything she had been holding back. At that moment, she realized that she had changed. She now saw herself as someone valuable and worthy of love. Meanwhile, Man's father and Mr. Gu were transporting goods in a truck when suddenly some of the items fell onto the road. As Mr. Gu got down to retrieve them, Samik and Mr. Beck happened to pass by and immediately recognized him. They stopped and demanded that he return with them, saying they had been searching for him for a long time. However, Mr. Gu calmly invited them to talk elsewhere. During their conversation, Mr. Beck revealed that he knew Mr. Gu was only pretending to be poor and was actually hiding in the village. It was then revealed that Mr. Gu had once dated Mr. Beck's younger sister, who had since passed away, an event that had left Mr. Gu deeply heartbroken. After the meeting, Mr. Gu returned home. Meanwhile, Mr. Yim grew increasingly worried about him, especially after noticing that he had encountered someone suspicious and dangerous. However, upon seeing Mr. Gu return safely, Yim felt relieved. Once home, Mom prepared some snacks for Mr. Gu and told him to rest, noticing how exhausted he looked. Later, at Mon's house, her mother curiously asked why Mon was frequently visiting Mr. Gu's house. Without hesitation and with innocent sincerity, Mon casually answered that she was now dating him. Her mother and Gon were both completely shocked by her unexpected revelation. The next day, as usual, Mr. Gu worked with Mr. Yum. Mon's father suspected that Mr. Gu might be in debt, especially after seeing him visited by rough-looking men the previous day. Concerned, he shared his own past experiences, revealing that he had once been in debt himself, but had managed to pay it off through hard work. He advised Mr. Gu to do the same, work diligently and clear his debts. However, Mr. Yum had no idea that Mr. Gu was actually a wealthy man who was not struggling financially. Mr. Gu, choosing to hide from his past, simply listened without revealing the truth. That night, Mom visited Mr. Gu's house for the first time. To her surprise, he wasn't drunk. Curious, she asked him why. After a moment of hesitation, Mr. Gu opened up about a painful memory he had always kept hidden. He revealed that he had once been very close to someone who had struggled deeply with life. That person had intended to commit suicide. In an attempt to help, Mr. Gu had urged them to see a psychiatrist, hoping that professional help could ease their burden. However, despite going to the psychiatrist, the person did not change their mind. Instead, immediately after the visit, they took their own life. When Maon asked who it was, Mr. Gu answered that it was his ex-girlfriend. The weight of that tragedy haunted him, and he had blamed himself for her death ever since. That was why he drank every night, to escape the guilt that never left him. The story then flashes back to the past. At that time, Mr. Gu had been betrayed by his so-called friend, Samik. Because of Samik's actions, thugs had attacked Mr. Gu at a train station. Just as he was about to suffer a brutal beating, a woman intervened, trying to save him. That woman was Maon. Unbeknownst to Maon, Mr. Gu had silently vowed to protect her from then on. If not for her intervention, he would have been killed that night. Later, while buying alcohol, Mr. Gu passed by a public telephone and was suddenly overwhelmed by memories. He recalled the devastating moment when he lost the woman he loved. He also remembered that around the same time, his subordinates had informed him that Director Beck had seized control of all his businesses. They had urged him to return and reclaim what was his, but Mr. Gu had been too consumed by grief. At that moment, feeling utterly exhausted from everything, he told his subordinates that he was tired of it all. Afterward, he wandered into the rice fields and got drunk. While he lay there, lost in despair, a wild dog approached, ready to attack him. But once again, Maon appeared and chased the dog away, unknowingly saving him for the second time. At that moment, Mr. Gu looked at her and said that she shouldn't have saved him. He believed that he was meant to suffer, that he deserved all the misfortunes in his life because of his past sins and the guilt he carried over his lover's death. No matter how much time passed, Mr. Gu couldn't shake the belief that he was destined for bad luck. A few days later, Mr. Gu decided to confront his past. He went to the club where he used to work, intending to meet Director Beck. When Mr. Gu arrived, everyone present bowed and greeted him with respect. However, he ignored them and walked straight into Director Beck's office. Director Beck was visibly shocked by his sudden arrival. He had expected Mr. Gu to come much later. Without hesitation, Mr. Gu stated that he hadn't been able to sleep well since their last meeting because Director Beck had misjudged him. Mr. Gu admitted that he had been running away from his problems, pretending to live a poor life in the village. However, he clarified that he had only wanted a break from his routine, not to abandon everything permanently. He expressed deep disappointment in Director Beck for betraying him in business. Mr. Gu then made it clear that his current way of life was only temporary. When he returned, he would make one of two choices: either quit the business entirely and become a full-time farmer, or reclaim his position and take back control. If he chose the latter, he would have no hesitation in removing Director Beck from power. Before leaving, Mr. Gu warned Director Beck not to act recklessly. Later that night, Samik met with Mr. Gu to explain what had happened at the train station. He revealed that he had never sent the message that lured Mr. Gu into a trap. At the time, his phone had been taken by Director Beck, meaning Beck was the one behind the setup. Samik wanted Mr. Gu to understand his side of the story. However, Mr. Gu calmly replied that he already knew the truth, without Samik even needing to explain. That night, Chang He found an expensive car key in the restroom. Obsessed with cars, he immediately asked Mr. Gu if the key belonged to him. Without hesitation, Mr. Gu took Chang He to his apartment and showed him his car. Chang He was completely stunned by the luxury vehicle in front of him. He had never imagined that someone like Mr. Gu could own such an extravagant car. Then, to his absolute shock, Mr. Gu handed him the car keys. Overjoyed, Chang He drove the car with excitement. The next day, Chang He took Mr. Gu's expensive car to the village to pick up Maon. His friends were in awe, unable to believe that he was driving such a high-end vehicle. Curious, they asked whose car it was. When they found out it belonged to Mr. Gu, they began speculating about his true occupation, wondering what kind of work he did to afford such luxury. Meanwhile, at the office, Maon was once again insulted by her boss. Frustrated, she later confided in Mr. Gu while drinking. She vented about how her boss constantly belittled her, despite being incompetent himself. The truly skilled employees had already left the company, while her boss remained because no other company would hire him. Instead of improving, he took out his frustrations on his subordinates. Mr. Gu simply responded, "Weak and incompetent people are often the cruelest. They degrade others to hide their own flaws." After their conversation, they took a walk outside. The night was cold, and seeing Maon shiver, Mr. Gu instinctively pulled her into a hug to warm her up. At that moment, they shared a kiss under the night sky. Later that night, Mr. Gu woke up and noticed two people sneaking around near Miss Yum's pickup truck. Suspicious, he observed them placing something underneath the vehicle. In the morning, Mr. Gu immediately checked the truck and found a tracking device attached to it. To confirm who had planted it, he drove the car through several locations, secretly watching to see if anyone followed him. Sure enough, he soon noticed a car trailing him. A few moments later, Mr. Gu smashed the car window of the person following him and forced him to reveal who was behind everything. It turned out that they were working under orders from their boss, Shik's leader. Determined to get answers, Mr. Gu went to confront Chairman Shik and demanded an explanation. Chairman Shik admitted that he had been wanting to meet Mr. Gu for a long time. He had initially assumed that Director Beck had killed Mr. Gu, so discovering that he was still alive came as a great relief. Chairman Shik urged Mr. Gu to return from his break and take back control of the business. He believed that Mr. Gu, not Director Beck, should be in charge. He explained that he didn't want to appear weak to his enemies and that Mr. Gu was someone they could never afford to underestimate. That's why he needed him to come back immediately. However, Mr. Gu refused, saying that the time wasn't right. He still wanted to stay in the village for a while. That afternoon, Mr. Gu and Maon sat by the river, enjoying the beautiful scenery. Mr. Gu mentioned that he wanted to praise Majan. The two of them laughed and enjoyed the peaceful moment together. Meanwhile, a young man named Huan, an old friend of Mr. Gu, arrived in the village and approached the Maon family's house. At that time, Mrs. Yum was at home. She asked who he was, and Huan introduced himself as an old friend of Mr. Gu. Hearing her son's name, Mrs. Yum immediately invited Huan inside. Shortly after, Mr. Yum and Mr. Gu arrived. They exchanged greetings and sat down together. Huan told them about Mr. Gu's impressive past and his previous job. However, Mr. Yum remained silent throughout the conversation, as he had always believed that Mr. Gu was just an ordinary poor man. Later, Huan asked to speak with Mr. Gu privately. During their conversation, Huan revealed that all of Mr. Gu's former friends and subordinates had fallen into poverty. They were struggling with terrible jobs, and many of them were barely getting by. He pleaded with Mr. Gu to return, as so many people depended on him. Even Chairman Shik was urging him to come back. The next day, Mrs. Yum became suspicious of the car that Chang He had been driving daily, so she questioned her son about it. At first, Chang He lied, saying it belonged to a friend. However, his father didn't believe him and kept pressing him until Chang He finally admitted that the car belonged to Mr. Gu. Hearing this, Mr. Yum was stunned. He had never imagined that Mr. Gu was wealthy. In the end, he forbade his son from using Mr. Gu's car. Of course, Chang He was furious, but their argument came to an abrupt halt when Mr. Gu suddenly entered the house. That night, Mr. Gu finally decided to meet his old friend, Huan. However, instead of a warm reunion, Mr. Gu expressed his anger toward Huan, accusing him of constantly lying to him. Not only that, but Huan had secretly been selling drugs at the bar Mr. Gu had once run. Because of this betrayal, Mr. Gu declared that he would get rid of the person responsible, Director Beck. At that moment, Mr. Gu made his decision. He would return. Upon hearing this, Huan immediately contacted Chairman Shik to deliver the news. Mr. Gu was coming back. The next day, the police suddenly raided the bar where Director Beck worked. However, he managed to escape. It turned out that Director Beck knew this was all orchestrated by Mr. Gu, who had reported him. Furious, he immediately contacted Mr. Gu and warned him to stay in the village, because soon Director Beck would come there and tear the place apart. Realizing that it was time to leave, Mr. Gu said goodbye to Maon. He told her that he would be leaving the village soon and returning to Su. Hearing this, Maon was shocked and asked why he was leaving so suddenly and what had happened. However, Mr. Gu couldn't explain, leaving her heartbroken. She couldn't accept that the man she loved was leaving her. That night, Maon cried for hours before deciding to go to Mr. Gu's house. When she arrived, she told him that even though he was leaving, she would still stay in touch and visit him once or twice a month. However, Mr. Gu told her that it was best to end their relationship. He feared that she would eventually learn about his dark and dangerous past, but Maon insisted that she didn't care about his past. Mr. Gu then advised her to live an ordinary life and find a man who could truly love and cherish her, someone who wasn't as unclear and unpredictable as he was, but Maon refused. Instead, she confessed that she wanted to have children with him. Her words deeply moved Mr. Gu. He began questioning his decision, doubting whether he truly wanted to leave. He still loved Maon and wanted to be with her. However, he knew that his life in the city was dangerous, and if he stayed with her, she could be at risk. For Maon's safety, he had no choice but to leave. The next morning, Mr. Gu bid farewell to Mr. Yum and officially left the village, returning to take care of his old business. Several days passed. Meanwhile, Director Beck was still on the run, being pursued by the police. As he desperately tried to escape, he jumped over a road divider, unaware of the ongoing construction. He landed on a large piece of metal, which pierced through his heart. He died instantly from the tragic accident. Sometime later, Maon was still heartbroken over Mr. Gu's departure. She repeatedly tried calling him, but his number was no longer in service. The next day, Mr. Gu and his new friends and subordinates attended Director Beck's funeral. There, Mr. Gu drank heavily and for some reason burst into laughter. He couldn't believe that one of his enemies had died just like that. A year passed. Now Mr. Gu had reached the peak of his success. His business was thriving, completely different from his previous life in the village. Yet, despite his achievements, he still missed his time in the village, especially Maon. At the same time, Maon had been focusing on her own life, but she too often thought about Mr. Gu. Unable to resist his feelings any longer, Mr. Gu finally decided to visit Maon's house. However, when he arrived, he was surprised to see a foreign woman stepping out of the house. It turned out that she was Mr. Yum's new wife. When Mr. Gu met with Mr. Yum, the latter explained everything. After Mr. Gu left the village, Mrs. Yum grew tired of working in the fields. She convinced Mr. Yum to sell their farm. Meanwhile, their 3 children also felt bored with village life and decided to move to Su. However, not long after, Changhe found his mother asleep for an unusually long time. Tragically, she had passed away. Her death devastated the entire family. Since then, her children had struggled immensely and eventually chose to leave the village. With his children gone, Mr. Yum eventually remarried. Hearing all this, Mr. Goose sat in silence, lost in thought. Guilt weighed heavily on him. He realized that during the most difficult phase of Maon's life, when her mother passed away, he should have been there for her. She had tried to contact him so many times, yet he had never responded. The next day, Mr. Gu finally reached out to Maon and asked to meet her again. Maon was overjoyed to receive his message. She had longed for this moment and couldn't wait to see him again. Finally, the two of them met. At first, it was awkward since they hadn't seen each other in a long time, and their appearances had changed. Maon smiled and remarked that Mr. Gu's hair was much longer. Mr. Gu chuckled and replied, "With hair like this, I must be a handsome man." As they walked together, continuing their conversation, Mr. Gu revealed his real name. Curious, Maon asked how he had gotten her new number. He explained that he had visited her old house in the village a few days earlier. Maon then realized that Mr. Gu must have learned about her mother's passing and her father's remarriage. They strolled through the market, enjoying the food, when Mr. Gu suddenly received a call from Samik. Apologizing, he asked Maon to wait while he handled some urgent business at the office. At the office, as he reviewed the financial reports, he noticed something strange. There was a significant amount of missing money. Alarmed, he immediately returned to the bar. There he witnessed a woman furiously arguing with an employee, even resorting to violence. Upon investigating, Mr. Gu discovered that she was a debtor, refusing to repay her loan. Without hesitation, he sternly scolded her, warning that if she caused trouble again, he wouldn't be so lenient. After dealing with the woman, Mr. Gu confronted a friend he suspected of embezzling money. His suspicions were confirmed. The missing funds had been taken to pay off gambling debts. Furious, Mr. Gu reprimanded him harshly. Once he had resolved all his problems, he kept his promise and returned to Maon. Seeing him arrive injured, she was both shocked and concerned. She pointed out how different he seemed from just an hour ago, and at that moment, she realized how dangerous Mr. Gu's work truly was. After eating, they walked through the city, enjoying the beauty of the night. Maon confided in him about a past male friend who still hadn't repaid his debt. Instead, he had thrown an extravagant wedding, and when she confronted him, he humiliated her. That night, they spent time together in the apartment. Later, Mr. Gu met with Chairman Shik. It was then revealed why Mr. Gu had been chosen as a manager. Despite his flaws, Mr. Gu was different from others. Unlike them, he never gambled or played around with women. His only vice was his drinking problem, which Chairman Shik considered severe. Concerned for his well-being, the chairman suggested that Mr. Gu see a psychiatrist to help him overcome his addiction. That night, back at the apartment, Mr. Gu, drunk, finally poured out all his feelings. He admitted to Mayon that she already knew how flawed he was, but even if he was a mess, she had to understand that he truly loved her. Meanwhile, Mayon spent time with her Liberation Club friends. It was clear that all the members had finally found their freedom. She too had changed. She could now express her thoughts openly and socialize with ease. Mr. Gu, on the other hand, continued dealing with his troubled friend who had stolen money from the bar. It turned out that the stolen funds had indeed been used for gambling. Enraged, Mr. Gu beat him and demanded that every cent be returned. A few days later, a man who owed money in Mayon's name finally repaid his debt. This brought her immense relief, as her burdens were slowly lifting, one by one. That evening, when she met Mr. Gu, she happily told him that her debt had finally been settled. Mr. Gu, in turn, confessed the real reason he drank so much. He revealed that for years he had been drowning in guilt over things he had no control over. Drinking was his way of escaping, but after meeting Maon, he finally understood what happiness meant, without needing alcohol. At that moment, both of them realized what it truly felt like to be completely loved. As the story reached its conclusion, each character found their own form of freedom. Maon had finally found someone who truly understood her. Chang-hye realized that happiness didn't come from wealth, but from working diligently at a job he loved. Maon no longer felt like an insignificant person. She had been deeply loved by Mr. Gu. Now, she could easily socialize. Her debts were gone, and she was no longer shackled by loneliness. She had finally gained the courage to express all her emotions. She even remarked that there was a version of herself before meeting Mr. Gu, and another after him. Meanwhile, Mr. Gu made a drastic decision. He threw away all his alcohol bottles and gathered all the money in his house. It was unclear what he intended to do with it, but one thing was certain. He was determined to quit drinking. Perhaps he planned to leave his job at the bar and return to the village to live with Maon. And that was the ending of this story.